So because DK has written so much about the Jewish problem, and there is so much material, so I've separated the various issues into several parts. So today we will just look at the part one, which is what is really the problem. Decay tells us that the problem of the Jews is symbolically the problem of humanity as a whole. The Jew, with his emphasis upon his position as one of the chosen people, has stood symbolically throughout the centuries as the representative of the wandering, incarnating soul. But the Jewish people have never recognized the symbolic mission with which their race was entrusted. And they have taken to themselves the glory and honor of the Lord's elect. The Jew made this mistake, and as an Oriental race, the Jews have failed to hold before the Orient the divine nature of mankind as a whole. For all are equally divine, and all are the Lord's elect. So when the Jew and the narrow-minded religious devotees recognize their identity with all other people and express this identity through right relationship, then we shall see a very different world. But the problem of the Jews goes deeper into the entire question of right human relations. And friends, this is exactly what our second solar system is all about: right human relations. It can only be solved on that inclusive basis. It concerns the interplay between people of different races, but recognizing brotherhood in the human family. It evokes the whole problem of selfishness and unselfishness, of consideration and of justice. And these are the factors which must condition all parties. Now, he wrote this in the 1930s when Nazi Germany was in full swing. And his words still echo today. They ring true today. All parties, meaning the Palestinians and the Jews these days. The Jew needs to recognize his share in bringing about the dislike which hounds him everywhere. The Gentile must shoulder his responsibility for endless persecutions and pay the price of restitution. Let's look for a moment, he tells us, at the situation of the Jews prior to the bitter and unpardonable attack made upon them by Hitler, and prior to the war 39-45. They were to be found in every land and claim citizenship in every country. Within the nation of their birth, they preserved intact their own racial identity, their own peculiar way of life, their own national religion, which DK recognizes is everybody's privilege, and a close adherence to those of their own race. But other groups have done this. but to a much lesser degree, and have been eventually absorbed and assimilated by the land of their citizenship. The Jews have always constituted a nation within a nation. So the sin of separateness is deeply inherited in the race itself, as well as amongst those amongst whom they live. But for the perpetuation of the separation, the Jews are largely responsible. They are also the product of their need down the centuries to leave off the people among whom they wander, to seize the presented chance to take what they want, to see to it that their children get the best of everything available, no matter what the cost to others, to cling to their own people in the midst of the alien races amongst whom they cast their lot, and to preserve inviolate, as far as may be, their national religion, their national taboos, and the ancient landmarks. This has been essential to their existence under persecution, and it is this that makes them the most reactionary and conservative race in the world. The Jew is a good citizen, law-abiding, kindly, and decent in his ways, anxious to play his part in community life, and ready with his money when asked for it. But he still remains apart. And because of the aptitude of the Jew to live off of other people and to live within a nation, benefiting by its customs, culture, and civilization, but retaining a separate identity and not becoming a true part of the national life, the Jew has ever been subjected to persecution. As a race, he is nowhere liked, and people are on guard against him and his methods. Although having said that, DK then adds, this general statement is often untrue where the individual Jew is concerned. There are Jews in every nation and locality who are deeply loved by all who know them, whether Jew or Gentile, who are respected by all around them, who are sought after and valued. They belong to the great spiritual aristocracy of humanity. And though they may function in Jewish bodies and bear Jewish names, they join forces with men and women gathered out of all nations who belong to humanity and who have outgrown national and racial characteristics. These men and women are, as a group, the hope of humanity, the guarantee of the new and better world for which we all wait. And their numbers are increasing daily. Now, there is the 2025 initiative group, and they call themselves the Heschel Group, who have a meditation every week. And if you're interested, write to initiative.2012.webinars@gmail.com, and you can participate in their meditation where they meditate on the conflict of the Middle East. Perhaps the major factor that has made the Jew separative and has cultivated in him the superiority complex which distinguishes him under an outer inferiority is his religious faith. This faith is one of the oldest in the world. It is older than Buddhism by centuries, older than many of the Hindu faiths, and much, much more ancient than Christianity. And there are features in it that have definitely made the Jew what he is. It is a religion of taboos built up carefully to protect the wandering Jew as he drifted from one community to another. Now mark the next sentence, because this is a very important comment from DK. It is a religion with a distinctly material basis, and we'll understand a little bit later what DK really means by that. So it's a religion with a distinctly material basis, emphasizing the land flowing with milk and honey. This was not symbolic in the days of its use, but a presented objective of his travels. And that rings true today. The land flowing with milk and honey is the Jewish state of Israel that they are trying to set up. For them, that was the land of flowing with milk and honey. The coloring of the religion is separative. God is the God of the Jews. The Jews are God's chosen people. They must be preserved in physical purity, and their well-being is of major importance to Jehovah. They have a messianic destiny, and Jehovah is jealous of their contacts and interest in any other people or God. The word love, as it concerns relation to other nations, is lacking in their religious presentation, though love of Jehovah is taught with due threats. The concept of a future life dependent upon conduct and behavior to others and on right action in the world of men is almost entirely lacking in the Old Testament. And teaching on immortality is nowhere emphasized. Salvation is apparently dependent upon the keeping of numerous physical laws and rules related to physical cleanliness. They go so far as to establish retail shops where these rules are kept, in a modern world where scientific methods are applied to purity in food. All these and other factors of less importance set the Jew apart. And these he enforces no matter how obsolete they are or inconvenient to others. So to sum up, the Jew has set up an ancient pattern of living within other nations. As a citizen with all the rights of citizenship, he has built up a wall of taboos, of habits, of religious observances, which separate him off from his environment and make him assimilatable. Oh God. Okay, in other words, they can't be assimilated. These must go. And he must become a citizen, not only in name, but in fact. There is no other problem like it in the world today. An entire people of distinct race, religion, goals, characteristics, culture, and a uniquely ancient and most reactionary civilization, scattered as a minority in every nation, positing an international problem, possessed of great wealth and influence, claiming citizenship in every nation, but retaining deliberately their racial identity, creating dissension among the nations, attempting in no way to meet harmoniously their complex problems on any large scale with due psychological understanding or consideration of the Gentile environment to which they ceaselessly make appeal, offering only material solutions and constant, almost abusive, demands for the Gentiles to shoulder the entire blame and end the difficulty. Such is the problem of the Jewish minority, given with a frankness which will evoke much criticism, but given in this way in the hope that because it is prompted with love, the Jews will shoulder their own responsibilities, will cease crying aloud to the Gentiles to solve the problem alone, and will begin to cooperate with a full sense of spiritual understanding, and so help the thousands of Gentiles who earnestly want to help. Change in attitudes are needed on both sides, but very largely on the side of the Jews. And at the time he was talking about Europe under the Nazi rule. But this can apply of today's conflict with the Palestinians. Both sides need to change attitudes. There is evidence that these new attitudes are germinating, even if the finding of the right solution may take time. There are Jews who today are saying what is said here. And by the way, regarding this statement, there are Jews who today are saying what is said here. If you want to know more about that, click on that link and you will hear Rabbi Israel David Weiss echoing DK's words. He speaks quite loudly against Zionism and advocates right relations between Jews and Palestinians. It's only a 20-minute interview, but it's well worth having a look at it. But what is the origin of the Jewish problem? Let's delve a little bit more deeply into it so that we can understand that problem a bit better. If this problem, and DK is referring to the Jewish problem here, if the Jewish problem can be solved, it will be one of the potent factors in the restoration of world understanding and harmony. It cannot be solved without the cooperation of the men of goodwill throughout the world. And DK tells us there is little that I can say regarding this matter that can be checked or proved, for the clue to the problem is to be found back in the very night of time, and literally when the sun was in the constellation Gemini. In every grouping, he tells us, whether in heaven or on earth, there is always evidence a tendency by some units in the group to revolt, to rebel, and to show some form of initiative different to that of other groups in the same grouping. So back in later Lemurian times, a group of men of high development, from the point of view of that time, of course, and numbered amongst the then disciples of the world, they took issue with a planetary hierarchy and broke away from the law of the initiates. And it was a time, during Lemurian time, if you remember, it was a time wherein the emphasis of the teaching was upon the material side of life, and where the focus of attention was upon the physical nature and its control. And that group of disciples were the early founders of the present Jewish race. So this is how the old commentary expresses what happened. The law went forth from the inner group, which guided the destinies of men. That is the hierarchy of the time. Detach yourselves. Withdraw within yourselves the power to hold and gain and get. The sons of God who train themselves to leave the world of men and enter into light, they ever travel free. They hold not what they have. Release yourselves and enter through the gates of peace. And we can compare what the old commentary was talking about here with the story of the rich young man in the Bible in Matthew 19 in the New Testament, who asked Jesus how to attain eternal life, and when told to give up his wealth, went away grieving. I'm sure that all of you remember that story. But it's a recount of what planetary hierarchy was saying back in Lemurian times to the group of disciples. And we are told in the Bible that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. Not that there is anything wrong to be rich, but there is another factor which we will see a little bit later in it. Some of the sons of God waiting outside those gates, ready to enter when the word went forth to roll the gates aside, were laden with the treasure of the earth. They waited and discussed. The rest of those who were prepared entered into light and passed between the pillars of the gate. They left behind the loads they brought and entered free and were accepted, carrying naught. And because they travel as a group, and as a group progressed and grasped, the group responded to the divine command and halted. There they waited, standing before the portal of the path, grasping the garnered treasures of 1,000 cycles. Naught did they wish to leave behind. They had labored for the riches which they held. They loved their God, and him they sought to dower with the fullest measure of the riches they had gained. They loved not discipline. Again, the word went forth drop on the ground all that you hold and enter free. But 3 revolted from that stern command. The rest obeyed. They passed within the gates, leaving the 3 outside. Many were raised into the heights of joy. The 3 remained without the gates, holding their treasure firm. The masters met in conclave and decided what should be the fate of those who, having reached the gates of light, loved the possessions of the world more than they loved the service of the light. Again, the word went out to the revolting 3 who waited still without the gates. Hold what you have and gather more, but know no peace. Garner the fruits of mind and seek your power in wide possessions, but have no sure abiding place. Within yourselves, because you are disciples of the Lord, you shall have no share in peace, no sure and certain knowledge of success, nor power to hold your gains. Always shall there be the knowledge dim of him who watches over all. Always the urge to gather and amass, never the time to hold and to enjoy. Pass on, therefore, until the time shall come, and again you stand before the gates of light, this time with empty hands. Then enter, free, accepted by the servants of the Lord, and know forever peace. These 3 were the founders of the modern Jewish race. They were the 3 advanced disciples who resented the command to enter free and untrammeled the place where light is to be found. They sought to hold that which they had gathered and to dedicate it to the service of God. And there's the main point here. Their unrecognized motive was love of riches and a desire to hold safe their gains. And that's what I meant earlier on. Nothing wrong being rich. But what is not acceptable is the love, that desire to possess, that desire to gain, that desire to hold and to amass. The ancient legend tells us that the 3 went forth in sorrow and revolt, laden with their treasures, and thus the history of the wandering Jew began. We are told that these 3 swore an everlasting vow to stand together and never to desert each other. This vow, down the ages they have kept. It has consequently produced that racial separativeness and community of interest which arouses the antagonism of other races. So the tendency, this ancient tendency of the Jews to grasp and hold and also to preserve their racial and national integrity are their outstanding characteristics. They cannot be absorbed. But down the ages, the Jew has been wandering, producing much of the beauty in the world and giving to humanity many of its greatest men. And I've only picked on a few here, such as Einstein, Master Jesus, obviously, Moses Maimonides, who was a rabbi during the Middle Ages, and Sigmund Freud, the Jewish Austrian psychiatrist. And there were so many more, which of course I couldn't reproduce here. But he has at the same time been hated and persecuted, betrayed and hounded. He embodies in himself symbolically the history of humanity. Let's remember that it's an interesting fact, he tells us, that the Jews are found in every land without exception, and that their influence is potent and widespread, far more so than they themselves are willing to recognize. And they wield most potently that peculiar concretization of energy that we call money. They constitute in a strange manner a unique and distinctly separated world center of energy. And the reason for this is that they represent the energy and the life of the previous solar system. We've been told that at the close of this solar system, a certain percentage of the human family will fail to make the grade and will then be held in pralaya or in solution until the time for the manifestation of the next and third solar system comes around. They then will constitute the advance guard and the symbol of the coming humanity of that system. So the same thing happened in the system before, that is the first solar system. The Jews are the descendants of that earlier group which was held in pralaya between the first and the second solar system. And we will remember that the third ray governs that system, the first solar system. And it also governs the Jewish race. And if we bear in mind that that system was occupied with the divine aspects of matter only and with external conditions, and that the Jews were the highest product of that system, then we can come to an understanding of the Jew, his separateness, his desire for racial purity, and his interest in that which is commercial and tangible. The Jew down the ages has insisted upon being separated from all the other races, but he brought over from that previous system the knowledge necessary then, but obsolete now, that his race was the chosen people. And if you remember, in about a month ago, we talked about the imperfections of the seven ray lords. Here we see the imperfection of the third ray lord, where the third energy is the energy of substance itself. So it's the maneuvering and the manipulation of desire for its satisfaction along material lines, manifesting mainly on the sixth astral plane. So it's the manipulation of desire for satisfaction along material lines. So hence we see the association with the solar plexus and its corresponding physical center, the digestive system. Now, I've left this sentence there because we're going to talk about the Jews being the solar plexus of the planetary logos. But that will be in part 2. So here, then, we can link what DK said, where he said their unrecognized motive was love of riches and a desire to hold safe their gains. So that imperfection of the third ray. But we also see the imperfection of the seventh ray here, because ray 3 separates into ray 4, ray 5, ray 6, and ray 7. So the imperfection of the seventh ray Lord is that the seventh ray Lord, being the Lord of form par excellence, identified too much with the forms that he created instead of identifying with the producer of the form. He manifested or created forms and gave them life, but not love. Hence, his creations failed to show the beauty of the Lord and to reveal the quality of the Creator, which is essentially love. He vivified the forms, but not the soul within, as he knew not then that love sustains, because he didn't identify with the soul within or with the Creator, the solar logos, but with the intelligence or third aspect of divinity or form. And that was the mistake that our solar logos has also made. And this is also our mistake. We are too identified with the form, but not with the soul within or with the life within. So this is why DK says that the problem of the Jews, because they identify too much with the form, is the problem of humanity. So we must remember that this solar system is the second, and that in the first solar system, the emphasis was laid upon intelligent materiality. The goal of the highest initiate was to attain complete control over matter, to unfold the mind principle, and to evidence a definite materialism. And that the Jews have done that brilliantly. But in these so distant eons that marked attainment, whereas in this solar system, it marks defeat for humanity, but also for the Jews. This system, which is the second solar system, including all the planets along with our Earth, has a different goal. And the second divine aspect, that of love, had to be manifested, and manifested through the medium of matter, impregnated with the qualities developed in System 1. So what was perfection at that time is not so now. And it's interesting that Christ chose to return or to come into a Jewish body and to preach love and to show love. To break the mistake, not to break the mistake, to break the pattern and restore the Jewish faith towards something more living, not as obsolete as it was. But that didn't happen. Anyway, the general theme of the Old Testament is the recovery of the highest expression of the divine wisdom in the first solar system. That system embodied the creative work of the third aspect of divinity, that of active intelligence expressing itself through matter. In this solar system, the created world is intended to be the expression of the second aspect, that is, of the love of God. And this the Jew has never grasped, for the love expressed in the Old Testament is the separative, possessive love of Jehovah for a distinct unit within the fourth or human kingdom. And this is what Christ is preoccupied at the moment. And that was written in the 1930s. So Christ is still working at it. He is occupied with three activities. One is the reorganization of world religions to offset out-of-date theologies, to make way for the world religion, to return humanity to the simplicity which is in Christ, to rid the world of theology and churchianity. Actually, I love this word. DK uses this word, churchianity, or ecclesiasticism. And the second one is a preparation for a new revelation, which will inaugurate the new era, the new world order, and will set the note for the new world religion. And the third activity is the gradual dissolution of the Orthodox Judaism. Why is the Christ preoccupied with that? Because of its presentation of a wrathful Jehovah, caring only for his chosen people. And this is a basic evil. The world, the Lord of the world, the God in whom we live and move and have our being, is totally otherwise. And we all know that. Also because of their separativeness. And because Judaism is so ancient that its teachings are largely obsolete. And lastly, because when the Jews become spiritual, they will greatly benefit mankind, for they are found in every land. And the next, in part 2, we will be looking at the rays of the Jews and the significance of ray 1 with the Jews, and particularly the law of karma and how that relates to the Jews, and the Jews being the solar plexus of our logos. So that will be for next week. Thank you, friends. And you're very welcome to make any comment or share anything that you'd like to.
Thank you, Nicole. That was very enlightening.
Oh, there's more to come, I tell you. There's
Thank you,
more to
Nicole.
come.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're very welcome. Now, who can help me here? I promised that I was going to give you the compilation that I made on the Jewish principle. How do I get it to apparently you can do it in the chat, but I don't know how to do it. Can anybody help me here? Who's good with computers?
Which one, Nicole?
I want to put the compilation that I made. I want to share it with you. So how can I do that? Or
This
I
document.
can't. No, I've got the document, but I want to share it with you, but I don't know how. See,
She wants to put it in the chat. How does she put it in the chat?
yeah, how do I do that? Um,
Okay. There is, I can see in the chat, it was like sent to, maybe if you are a host, you can check. Like if you click on the chat, there is a send to, and the person name comes. For me, there are two hosts it was showing. And there is a plus icon. I mean, there is a circle with the plus inside. Can you check?
okay, hang on. So let me identify.
If you click on the chat icon, the below.
Hang on. Let me look for my Jewish compilation first. Okay, got it. Okay, I've got it now.
Okay, you can in the Zoom meeting. I think if you connected to the through the phone, that in the app below there are icons, right? Mute, start video, participants, chat. If you click on that chat icon,
Chat.
okay, below you can see send to.
You know what? Yes.
Yeah, in that on the left corner you can see the circle with the plus.
A circle with a plus.
Just a kind of icon or button, something like the which is where you left to the box where you can say like tap here to chat or tap here to message or reply. Left to that box there is a small round circle with a plus.
I can't see it. I see participants,
Okay.
summary, reactions, raise hands, interpretation, apps, notes, more, and that's it.
Oh,
No, I don't have that. Have you got that, Zenaidi? Zenaidi could have it because she's the host.
Okay, Nicole,
Yes.
you can send to me and I send it to the people in this meeting.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you
If
put
I
it in
have
a,
all emails,
yeah, can you put it in a PDF? Because I don't know how to get it out of the chat
yes,
box myself.
I can put in PDF and I send to all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
So much.
Thank you, Zenaidi.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
welcome.
Any comments, friends? I know Decay sounds harsh, but I know that he likes to tackle problems head on. He doesn't mince his words, but he says it with love so that we can learn our lesson from it. All right, then, friends, we'll leave it at that, and I will see you next week.